Jesus told us 2,000 years ago that our mission is to go and make disciples of all nations. He also promised us that only after we accomplish that task will we receive the blessing of his return. So, how are we doing accomplishing our mission? To answer that, let's classify the 7 billion people on the earth today into 3 groups. Let's start with the Christians. About 33% of the world's population would identify itself as Christian. We call this segment of the population World C, C for Christian. It's important to remember that not all of the people that fall into World C are true believers in Christ. They merely identify themselves as Christian because of nominal belief in Jesus, or because they live in a country where everyone is considered Christian, so they would do the same. Next, there's the 38% of the world that has access to the gospel but has chosen not to follow Jesus. They have Bibles in their language, churches nearby, friends or co-workers who are potentially Christians, or access to other Christian resources in their language. These people have access to the good news, but just haven't acted on it yet. This segment of the population is called World B. That leaves us with 29% of the world, just over 1 out of every 4 people on this planet who not only have never heard of Jesus, they have no chance of hearing the good news of Jesus Christ. They have no access to the gospel, no Bibles, no churches, no believers nearby, no chance to learn about Jesus. We call that 29% World A. Now, on to missionaries. Only 1 out of every 1,800 Christians in World C decides to serve as a cross-cultural missionary. So, we can pull 400,000 missionaries out of that World C population. That's our total cross-cultural missionary force worldwide. Did you know that 72% of all our missionaries are going to World C? That's right. The vast majority of the missionaries being sent out are going to the people of the world that have Bibles and established churches. 25% of the missionaries are sent to World B, where there is already some access to the church and to the Bible. That leaves only 3% of the total missionary force to handle all of World A, the section of the population without any chance of hearing about Jesus. 29% of the world has no way to hear the gospel, but we're sending only a tiny portion of our Christian workers to them. What about finances? Annually, all those Christians in World C earn a total of $42 trillion. And together, they give about $700 billion to Christian causes each year. That includes everything: Christian nonprofits, churches, youth programs, missions, etc. Can you do the math? Less than 2% of Christian income is being given to Christ's causes. Out of that $700 billion given to all Christian causes, only $45 billion is given to missions specifically. That's a little over 6%. In fact, there is more money reported embezzled from the church each year than is given to missions. Remember those 400,000 missionaries? We'd have $45 billion to support them and their cross-cultural work. But how exactly is it allocated? Well, $39 billion goes to World C every year. Yep, 87% of that missions money is being spent in areas of the world that have Bibles and churches available. $5.4 billion, or 12%, goes to World B each year, those that have access to the gospel message but have rejected it. That leaves only $450 million, or 1% of all missions money going to World A, the least reached people of the world. To put that into perspective, annually Americans spend more money on Halloween costumes for their pets than gets sent to World A. To summarize, only 3% of our missionary force, armed with only 1% of missions giving, is going out to reach the 2 billion people who don't have access to the gospel. 2 billion people are still waiting for the good news of Jesus Christ. So here's a question for you. What are you going to do to change that?
So the world's population today is an astounding 7.6 billion people. It's difficult for us to imagine 7.6 billion people, so we'd like to demonstrate for you who these people are and where they stand in relationship to God. The entire group, when standing in a row, represent the world's 7.6 billion people. If we divide the row into two sides, the 6 people on the right represent 5.4 billion people who are within reach of the gospel. So being within reach of the gospel means that these people, 1, can hear about Jesus, 2, most likely have access to a printed Bible, and 3, live where churches exist in their cultures. 1, can hear about Jesus, most likely have access to the printed Bible, live where churches exist in their culture, being within reach of the gospel. The first person represents the active Christians. Active Christians know Jesus personally and share Jesus with others. And share Jesus with others. And share Jesus with others. That's active. The next 2 people represent nominal Christians. Nominal Christians are Christians in name only. Many nominal Christians think going to church or having Christian parents makes them Christian. The next 3 people represent non-Christians within reach of the gospel. Non-Christians in this group have the opportunity to hear the gospel, but are blind to spiritual truth and therefore live in darkness. Let's turn our attention to the 5 people on the left side. These people represent 2.2 billion people who are 1, beyond the reach of the gospel, 2, most likely do not have a Bible in their own language, and 3, are without a church in their culture. So beyond the reach of the gospel, most likely do not have a Bible in their own language, and without a church in their culture. The first person represents the non-religious and atheist population. Non-religious and atheists can be found anywhere in the world, but are most concentrated places like North Korea, Albania, and China. Many people in these countries are raised believing that there is no God. The next 2 people represent Muslims. Muslims worship Allah and consider Muhammad to be his final prophet. Muslims also consider Jesus to be a prophet, but do not believe that he is the Son of God. 1/5 of the world's population is Muslim. The Muslim world reaches from Southeast Asia to Africa, yet there are more missionaries in the state of Alaska than there are in the entire Muslim world. The next person represents Hindus, who live mainly in India and Nepal. Hindus believe in millions of gods and that a single soul migrates through many cycles of birth and death. The last person represents 2 groups of people, Buddhists and tribal. Buddhists follow the teachings of the Buddha. Most Buddhists are found in Thailand, Japan, and China. Tribal people live in constant fear of evil spirits, and many worship their ancestors. So, this is the world. Look again, consider the difference between the 2 major divisions of the world's population. While there are many non-Christians in the group on the right, most likely these non-Christians, 1, live within reach of the church, 2, most likely have a Bible in their own language, 3, can hear about Christ, and 4, have the opportunity to attend a culturally relevant church. But the non-Christians represented by the group on the left, 1, live beyond reach of the gospel, 2, have no living witness of Christ in their own language, and 3, very rarely have any access to the gospel in print. However, this view of the world's population is not yet complete. We need to include the dispersion of the global missionary force. So, to do this, I need 10 of you, 10 volunteers quickly to the front. God is calling. You're coming. Here we go. You count, Tyler. I can't count.
I got it. 3.
Got it. Okay.
We need 7 more.
All right, come on. This is about as non-committal as it gets, really. Just show up. 80% of life, just showing up.
Right? 8. I'm a Bible student. I can't count either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more. 2 more.
All right, quick.
1, 2. There we go.
Super. Oh, I almost made it, Braden. Almost. So close. Now, wait a minute. Let's commission you. Let's commission you. Go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. Now, let's simulate sending you into the world. So I want you to go and stand in front of the people that is on the stage. Don't fall, don't trip. Stand in front of the people that you think have the greatest need to hear about Jesus. Greatest need to hear about Jesus. Pick one, stand in front of it. Dad, pick one. Pick your favorite. Go for it. Be daring. All right, so now, are we all there? Jason, you there, buddy? Okay. All right. Now, in order, it's good that we have all these people up here. There's still some of you here. Now, in order to get an accurate picture of the current distribution of missionaries in the world, like where they actually are versus where they are up here, we need to do some rearranging. So Tyler, please remove all but one missionary from the left side, the unreached side, and send the rest to the right side, those within reach of the gospel. How are we doing? Almost there? A little arthritic. Left is and right, like that. The other left. Okay, we set? We good? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Ooh.
I can't read.
There's a lot of this. I should have allowed for, more time.
No, we don't.
They're a happy group. Okay, listen. For every 10 missionaries that go out cross-culturally, it means learning a new language and culture. 9 of them, 9 out of 10, 9 of them go to the population of the world that lives within reach of the gospel. Only 1 goes to the population which is beyond reach. That's an accurate picture. So let's be clear. All missionaries serving anywhere are doing a valuable service. But wouldn't it be great to see a new wave of missionaries rise up to go to the world's least reached people? Matthew 9, 37, 38, the harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore ask or beg the Lord of the harvest to send out or to thrust out workers into his harvest, or what's that? The non-Christian world. Thanks, guys.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our Engage 2018 Missions Conference. We're so excited that all of you have come here, and I want to say a big thank you to all of our vendors and all of the people that came to speak. We're very excited to hear what it is that you have to say, and as you teach us about what's going on all around the world and how it is that we can be a part of it even here. So I also want to say thanks to the people who came here from the community. I want you to raise your hand if this is your first time at an Engage conference. Raise your hand if it's the first time. That is so awesome. Well, we're very happy to have you, and I hope that you really enjoy your day. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any of the students that are around or those who are working on the admissions team, and we can point you where you need to go. And also, if you came here to visit, you'll be able to get lunch downstairs. So thank you for all of you who came, and may you enjoy just learning more about the privilege it is to really carry the gospel and to represent Jesus on this earth. So I'm going to turn it over to Elijah. He's going to sing for us.
Whatever. I'm going to invite you guys to stand and sing for the sake of the world. Son's name. Amen. You may be seated.
Just to echo a bit of the sentiments of Jaden a moment ago, just really want to thank everybody for being here, especially students. You know, what would it be without you guys? Got out of bed bright and early and came, so that's awesome. Good stuff. Just excuse me, I just got to get into my preaching uniform here.
I can't see you. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm over here.
Oh, you're sitting now?
I'm sitting. Yep, I'm sitting. It'll be okay, Ruth. It'll all work out. Oh, Simon. Yeah. So where you been? Were you here all the time?
I was here the whole time. I was
Oh,
just going to ask you, though, if
awesome.
you're
Yeah.
not busy right now, we
Well,
want to have
kinda.
lunch at my place?
You know, with the over there, these people.
Oh, well, when you get a second,
Okay.
you're invited.
Like lunch?
Lunch.
Want to do lunch?
Lunch at my
Simon,
place.
do lunch at
Lunch at my
Simon's
place.
place.
Okay?
Wait a minute, I got a wire problem. Okay.
Lunch at my place.
Lunch at your place?
Yep.
And some of you that know me a little bit know this is my preaching uniform, so I just have to get properly attired. Some of you that are freaking out right now, no, he's not totally lost his mind. We'll all be good. Okay. You guys know what an elevator speech is? Sure, right? It's like, how fast can I impress somebody? And you got like 30 seconds to make it happen. So I heard one, it was like, wow, how, and now. I mean, that's the outline. There's your outline. Wow, how, did they make you do? No, okay, you did it. Free will, awesome. That's great. So, wow, how, and now. I thought, does that even make sense? You know, like, wow, what if a Christian had an elevator speech? What would it be like? You know, I wonder if there are any in the Bible. And like a flash, I have no idea why, like a flash, it popped into my head. How about Galatians 2:20? Paul says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me, gave himself for me. And I said, okay, but how does that break down to a wow, how, and now? I can't think of a better wow to impress somebody than when you self-identify as, instead of your name, I'm crucified. You imagine that? Like, this was Paul's actual mentality. I'm crucified, you know? And so the next logical question that you want to get after you wow somebody is, How does that work? How does that work? How does that work? And you say, well, it's not I that live. I no longer live. It's not I, but Christ lives in me. Interesting. And how does that work out in your life? Now, right? The life which I now live in this stuff, in the body, in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me, gave himself for me. But that's really awesome. That's your elevator speech. You had to summarize your whole Christian life, like, there it is, condense it. Paul did a pretty good job. Now, Paul's not the only one. I'm going to suggest to you, since I find these, I'm going to suggest to you that Jesus did something similar. So I'm going to take us just for a moment. John 13. So here's a passage. Basically, you begin 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All that. The whole big block of John's gospel is what? Upper room discourse. This happens in the same place. This entire block happens in the same place. So there's a little portion of Scripture that sometimes I think we think is incidental, but really it's not. Jesus is doing kind of like his elevator speech, but I think only in this sense that he wants to make a dramatic impact on his disciples. Okay? So where are they? They are having their Passover meal. Sometimes it's called the Last Supper. So they're all kind of reclining at the table. They're eating. That's the scene that's laid out here. And Jesus does something in the midst of this that is very profound. So that's what we have to play with a little bit today. We just want to play with that and see where that's relevant to our purpose. Jesus does something. It says here, he washes his disciples' feet. Okay? Now, somehow, this is to be connected to the rest of the upper room discourse. To the rest of it. Somehow, this is foundational. What he does here, although there's not a lot of teaching, is there? No teaching. Just let me do something. Let me do something. But what I do is going to impact you in such a way that it makes the rest of it relevant. In other words, if you miss this, if you miss the message of this simple act that I'm going to perform, you totally lose the meaning of the rest of the upper room discourse. Because what's the upper room discourse? We don't talk like that. We don't say discourse and stuff like this. But Jesus is going to talk to the guys around the table. And when he does, he's going to tell them some things that are important because he says, I'm not always going to be here with you. This is going to happen. I'm going to go to the Father. The Holy Spirit's going to come. And they're like, the Holy what? Like, what's that going to be? How's that going to work? Right? These guys, they won't get the full impact of this till later. But Jesus, because it says he loved them to the end. You see that earlier on in the text? That means that what he did here, washing their feet, as well as explaining to them exactly what's going to happen, the whole timetable, how this is going to unfold, how things are going to change dramatically for them, how they are going to become empowered witnesses to take the message of who he is to the ends of the earth, how all that's going to happen, right? This is all the outpouring of his love. It's not just the cross that he loved them to the end. Full disclosure. Wants them to be completely equipped. All of this, right? Okay. Washing their feet. So this makes no sense, really, unless you understand the table conversation. You ever listen to table conversation? I don't know what you talk about downstairs or elsewhere, sometimes family meals. They hear table conversation. Now, John doesn't record this in John chapter 13, but if you go to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you're going to find out that there was some conversation going on. Sometimes I wonder about that. What are they talking about? This is interesting. John chapter 22 gives some information that John doesn't cover. John wants to focus on the foot washing. Luke focus is elsewhere. So Jesus takes a cup and he shares that cup with the disciples. He takes some bread and he shares that bread with the disciples. And then he says, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Oh, wait, you're sitting at the table. Jesus is talking. Everybody's listening. We hope. They're all listening. And he's handing them this cup, and they're all drinking out of it. Hey, this is my blood, okay? This represents my blood. Right? So you sort of have to peel away all the things you know about the Lord's table and communion and all that stuff and just go back to sitting around with the guys. We're having this Passover meal, which is a pretty significant thing, and then Jesus says, hey, here's my blood, and they're trying to make sense out of it. They're not going to make complete sense out of it until sometime later, right? But that's not where we want to go with this. He says, okay, in the same way, the cup is my blood, okay. Now, if you have one of these Bibles that does the red and the black thing, like red text, Jesus words, Jesus land, black stuff, this is Luke commenting on what Jesus says. Okay, so, the red stuff's really, really good. The bread, the cup, got it. And then you go down to verse 25, the kings of the Gentiles lord it over them. Jesus keeps talking. But the commentary in between tells us a table conversation. It gives us the background as to why did Jesus do what he did, getting up in the middle of this Seder, in the middle of this Passover meal. Why did he get up and do what he did at this most inopportune time and perform this act on his disciples? Why did he do that? They began to question among themselves which of them it might be who would do this. A dispute also arose among them as to which of them was considered to be the greatest. I'm speechless. It's like he just handed off a cup and said, this is my blood. Handed off the bread, this is my body that'll be broken. And now, hey, when this whole kingdom thing, comes around, what do you think? Gonna be me? Gonna be you? Who's gonna be the greatest? If you don't get that, you won't get this whole business here. What's happening in 13, John, right? So John's focus is a little bit different. Details are a little different. But he's trying to make a point. There's something about this washing of feet. My word, what could that be? So let's just do something. Let me propose this to you. 2 scenes that we'll get to. Get the 2 scenes. This one first. This one. Simon, we'll get to your house in a minute. 2 scenes, right? This is what we want to get. This is what we got. The whole premise of the whole thing. Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. But I should say that to us, it's so culturally removed that we don't get it. Like washing hands or something. Just cleaning up, just something. Jesus transforms. He always does it. Takes something that's mundane and he embeds it. He enriches it with great spiritual significance. And that's what he's doing here. He takes something that's ordinary and he transforms it into something that every time they perform this simple cultural act, they're going to get it. And we have to figure out what they're going to get. What they're going to get it. Okay. What is it that they're going to get? So what was this whole foot washing thing? We'll clarify some misconceptions, right? So some think the fact that Jesus washed his disciples, he took the role of a slave and he did that. Only if they're all wealthy. Right? So in a wealthy household, then it would be normal to have a slave, and it would be the job of that slave that if you had a guest and the guest came into your house, it was just a matter of what? Personal comfort, something like that. Most of us that have been where I love wearing these, You know, my feet get pretty dirty. It's just a thing, right? Just a thing. Wash your feet. But ever so much in this day and age. So it was sort of a way to make a guest feel comfortable. They come in, let's provide them with this comfort. So in an average home, you're not rich, it was, hey, let's provide them with a towel, let's provide them with some water, let's provide them whatever, the means to wash their feet. They wash their own. That's how it worked in the average household. You just provide them, like, hey, washrooms down the hall, right? That type of thing, like you would do. You know? Wealthy homes would be a slave. It would be appropriate to do that. And you do that before they eat. And you know, this is a little weird because now they have the Passover, and I'm suggesting, we find from the other passages, that Jesus had this room rented, this upper room. And you got thousands of people pouring into Jerusalem for Passover. This is huge. And every hotel is booked, every room. Right? So you want to be sure you get your room. Everybody knows. Jesus had this room. Remember, he told his disciples how they would know and how they would find this and all that stuff. So he had this room, this upper room, already rented. All the preparations were there. The disciples were making all these preparations. And now it happens, as John describes it. You know, it unfolds. There they are. Tells a little bit about Jesus, what his thought process was coming into that. He knew he had come from God and that he would return back to God. That's going to be significant to the imagery of the washing of the feet. Going to be significant. See, right in that whole context, just prior to his getting up from the table at an inopportune time to perform this act on a disciple, what does he do? He's thinking. He's thinking. He knew. He knew. This is where I came from. This is where I'm going to. And all that is just enriched with purpose. Right? So we're supposed to fill in. He knew exactly why he came into the world, hence the blood, hence the broken body and all that stuff. This was a preoccupation with him. How do we know that? Right at the beginning, 13:1, what does it say? His hour had come. You know, all the other places in John's writing, oh, his hour has not yet come, his hour has not yet come, his hour has not yet come, because he was preoccupied. The whole trajectory of his life was focused on this singular event, the redemption of mankind. Right? So here his hours come. He understands this. He understands from where he came, why he came into the world, what he was to do while here in the world, and that he was going to depart from them imminently at some point. This was all worked out. And somehow he wants to leave them with that elevator thing, you know, before they hear the full business, right? About halfway through chapter 13, once we get Jesus gone. Let's keep Peter. Let's keep it. Once we get rid of Judas, then all of a sudden it flows. The whole teaching flows from there. And yet they're going to make that connection all the way back to this simple act that's going to demonstrate something to them. So the greatest, this is my little big idea. Two scenes. The greatest becomes the least, so that the least become the greatest. Only two things to remember, 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Greatest becomes the least becomes the greatest. This is Jesus' whole mission. This is why he came. As a matter of fact, in those opening verses of John 13, Jesus is fully conscious. Just because he says, I came from there and came to here, what is this telling you? Here's God enfleshed. And he's trying to describe the magnitude of his person in contrast to the lowliness of this act. If the God of the universe would stoop so low to do this, and later on, isn't he going to say this? If I, your master, do this, then you should, Right? There's the example. Then you should, wash one another's feet. Whether we set that off in quotes and say, does he mean like literally washing feet? Would that have the same meaning everywhere? But whatever it meant there, in that sense, and whatever meaning he was embedding into it, that's what they were to carry forward. Yeah. Right, so the greatest become the least, so the least become the greatest. Over here, we want to identify with him. Over here, we're not going to identify with you. No. But we're going to identify with someone over here, right? With her. Wherever she is, we'll make an entrance, right? Over here, identify with him, that is Jesus. Over here, identify not so much with Jesus, but with her. This woman who's the object of his love, right? Those two things we have to get. So, right in the middle of this whole thing, the most inopportune time, Jesus takes that off. So he's in this room, and right, he's got to look. What's he looking for? Water. Yeah. He's looking for water. So he's looking for stuff because this place was prepared, fully equipped. And here this stuff is laying there unused. And we're halfway through the meal. Should have been used already. Kitchen crew, I got this. So he's looking. Something's missing though, but he's looking, right? He's looking. I keep saying looking because I want you to remember that 50 more times. He's looking. Don't mind the man behind the curtain. He's looking, right? So what does he need? What does he need to do the job? So it tells us right in the text, the water, the basin, and the towel. These three things. I thought to myself, what am I looking for? What in the world am I looking for? I walk into the average ministry situation, what am I looking for? Want to be the guy up front? Everybody paying attention to? Want to have the status? Want to have my name on the sign? Or on the website? Whatever, Is that me? Is that what I want? I want the recognition. I want the approval. I want the applause. This really, you can't overstate it. So before he teaches them anything, he gives them this elevator speech. He just wants to nail them with this. That the rest of it is nothing unless you get this. Now we could easily say, well, what's this? Servant leadership, be humble, that type of thing. Of course, you wouldn't be wrong. You wouldn't be wrong on any point. And I think, how do we identify? So Jesus, he gets the stuff. What are we looking for? I mean, really, can you think about that? I'm just guessing. This is, wrapping the towel. It wasn't Holiday Inn stuff, This is here it is. Now, right, so he's going to do this simple act, basin the water, the whole thing, on a disciple. And I'm wondering, how am I supposed to identify with that? Came from the Father, came into this world, is going to leave this world, return back. So, how far did he come? And how far will I go? How far did he come? We think, well, I don't know. We have to get an astrophysicist or something to tell us how far that is. No, but seriously, when we're human beings. God's God. God doesn't exist as a human being, right? Think of what limitations, think of what distance he has to cross. So I don't know what Jesus is actually trying to get them to understand by this act, but it's like there's something about the physical movement that I would suggest of coming here and stooping down here. For those of you that choose kneeling as a mode of praying, you can do that to sort of force yourself to think, I'm in the presence of God. I should be humbled. I should assume my right position. But the God of the universe who crossed time and space, now there's a distance, right? You can't cross any greater distance than that. Time and space to come into this world, to hang on a cross. Yeah. That's a distance. And then I have to say to myself, to Doug, they say, Doug, how far will you go? He hangs on that cross. I have to say to Doug, hey, how much will you endure? How much? What sacrifice is too great? Does that make sense? Right? Because this is how I'm thinking. If I'm down here and I'm going to wash somebody's feet, I'm thinking it's like this, right? So you're doing that business. You're such a willing disciple. She's a good disciple. You need to hear that. You're a good disciple, yeah. Right? So let's review. The greatest became the least. That's half the message. The greatest became the least. What do I have to be to take part in that? Really. Lord, I'll go, but no further. Did any of you ever draw lines? Draw lines and say I think Jesus had younger knees. I'm just saying, because I'm feeling my age here. Hang with me. Draw lines. Some of you have already drawn a line. You've already drawn it. You got these razors, you can do it. Scratch it off. There's no line. There's no line with God. Why are you drawing a line? Why are you imposing limits that God never intended? It's like to the ends of the earth. And we're saying, oh, wait a minute. I've already made up my mind. No, not me. Or whatever. Whatever that mode of service. However God's calling you, and you say, yeah, I just checked my bank account. I just took stock of my skills. And that's not me. Line. I can't do that. You know how many years of marriage it took for my wife to, I want to say literally knock that out, but I think so. She got a frying pan that's got a dent in it. Every time, really.
Buy a new one for her.
Ruth, it's a metaphor. Okay. Now, but thanks for your participation. So, where was I? Yeah, I can't. Does anybody do that? Are you like a habitual I can't-ter? That's grammatically correct. Are you like a habitual offender at that? Can't. You need to just get that knocked out. What are you drawing lines for? Don't draw lines. I promise I will not draw a line. Get them up there. No, you don't have to. Don't draw a line. What line did he draw? No line. No lines. You're such a good disciple. It matches your... Now, so that's half the battle right there. We got to hasten Jason, my grandfather. Hasten Jason. The greatest became the least, so that the least could become the greatest. See, that's the thing. If I really love people, if that's out here in front, see, think about it this way. Think about someone you love more than anyone else. The object of your affection. Okay, you love your parents equally, so if that's there, do that. Parents, something. You love them. If they're in need, where are you going to draw the line? Where are you going to draw the line? You say, what are you talking about? I'd do anything. Right? So I think it's like a heart thing. I have to say it myself. Like, Doug, where's your heart, man? Where's your heart? You just got stuff you want to do, stuff you love, stuff that's more important, and you're drawing lines. I got the next 5 years figured out. I got the next 10 years figured out. Well, maybe not that anymore, but I got the next 5 years figured out. Am I willing to just be nothing? I'll be nothing in some obscure place. Nobody will ever know where I am. Nobody will know what I'm doing. That's the highest calling. For no credit. My name will never be in the paper. My name will never be on a book. I'll never be on TV. I'll be on the radio. Whatever. So the least can become the greatest. So anyway, this is my buddy, but this is his house. Hang on, I gotta get through the door. First, I don't want to trash his house, so what do? Right? Every place in the civilized world, take them off. Because what's going to happen when I get in there? What's he supposed to do, class? Yeah, so just check out what happens. Okay, so, hey.
Welcome,
Hi.
Rabbi.
Yeah, you said that well. Good.
So glad you came.
All right, I'm going to face the audience here.
Have a seat.
So let's sit down because, the guys, everybody, when they sit like this, and they ate the foods out in front of them. So Jesus goes into this house, and there's a woman who hears about this. Oh, he's going to be at the house of this Simon the Pharisee. And she is just so taken by this that when she just comes right to his feet. That's perfect. You're doing it. Yeah, you're perfect. Don't worry, you're perfect. Use your imagination. That's good. She comes to his feet, right? And what happens?
What is she doing?
Careful.
What is this? What is she doing? This doesn't make any sense.
Right. So could I explain? Okay. So anyway, there's like this guy who loaned money. The guy that loaned money, and two people that he loaned money to, and they owed one guy a lot of money, like a year and a half's worth of wages, and then the other person 2 months. They owed money. And the fella that they owed money to, he says, forget it. It's gone. You don't owe me anything. Which one of the two you think loved more? It's not a trick question. He's not biblically correct, but he's okay. Keep the job. The one who was forgiven more, loved more. And he says, then Jesus goes on to say, listen, I came in your house, you gave me no water to, but she has washed my feet with her tears and dried the tears with her hair. Since she came in, you gave me no oil, right? She brought something, yeah. She anointed my feet with oil. You gave me no kiss, not that I wanted one, but no offense. But, I was in the Ukraine once, and some guys like you were, but never mind. That's all. Well, that's what we call exegetical. Just let it go. But she has continually kissed my feet. Right? So let Jesus. Your sins are forgiven. Your faith. All right, so let's bring it in for a landing here a little bit. I'm liking this. Boy, my feet feel so good. Let's just finish where we started. In Matthew 9. This will be quick and painless. Well, quick. So Matthew 9, we started with Matthew 9, 37, 38. What was that? Well, first, Jesus went teaching, preaching, healing. 3 present participles. Anywhere Jesus went, teaching, preaching, healing. Teaching, preaching, healing. But when he saw the crowds, he was moved with compassion, right? Because they were harassed, they were helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he says, the harvest is big, the laborers are few, therefore pray or beg the Lord of the harvest that he would thrust out laborers into his harvest. You got that? Right, so here's the thing, everybody knows that. If you did a little investigation, though, you'd find this ekbalo, this throw out, this Greek verb, throw up or throw out. Really, it could be, either one. Ekbalo. If you go to the next verse, 10:1, it describes Jesus' disciples having power to do what? Cast out demons. Ekbalo, cast out. Pray the Lord of the harvest that he would ekbalo. It's that violent. You ever see how demons come out? Not willingly. Right? Saying, God, take me by the seat of my pants and throw me out into the harvest. But there's better stuff in the text. Go back, sneak back into chapter 8. You know the whole thing where the Gadarenes and the 2 guys that were demon-possessed, Jesus is going to do what he does, and that is, I can fix that. I can fix that. And he's going to ekbalo, right? They say to him that when you send us into the pigs, Jesus did. Get this. These people commission us, Jesus. Send us out. But where? Into the pigs. Pigs go over the cliff. All the locals like, get Jesus out of here. Just kill our economy. Listen, Jesus cares. Listen, don't lose it. Hang with me. Okay. Jesus cares more about those 2 demon-possessed guys than he would 1,000 pigs. But here's the thing. This is what you have to see. The demons are asking Jesus to send them. This is the same language that Jesus is saying we should be praying. If demons are praying to be commissioned, why aren't we praying for Jesus to commission us? And that's really not the total picture, but it's the manner in which this happens. Are you willing for God to just totally wreck your life, so to speak? You know, because you got all these lines. God loves that. Put all the lines in there. Put all the lines in there like somehow, I'm going to limit God because I put a line there. Really. It's just more stuff to drag your kicking and screaming body through. Right? Just more stuff. You think something's going to get in the way when God decides? It's really amazing. See, sometimes God has to do that. You have to get from the us to the me. You know those prayer meetings? The prayer meetings? Oh God, raise up a host of whatever. You know? Oh God, send her. oh God. You know. We can just envision a mighty missionary task force going to the ends of the earth. Oh God, let it be so. See, right? We pray us. The us stuff we pray. Evan Roberts, the Welsh Revival, going back a million years, right? The Welsh Revival. 26-year-old coal miner. God said, I'm not going to take somebody from the seminary, but to take somebody that's kind of dirty and dusty and just loves on me with all his heart. So he's in a meeting like this, and the preacher was saying, bend us, O Lord, bend us, O Lord. And here's Evan saying, bend me, bend me. Somewhere in all of this, just realize the great distance God came because he loved you so much. And can you follow suit and go whatever distance, at whatever cost, at whatever sacrifice, for some precious somebody? And that's all of us. Lord, thank you for patience from the gang here and for just working through simple little demonstrations that hopefully we won't forget. Won't forget the silly guy up there doing that, whatever he was doing. God, from this place, from this room, send me. Send me. Use us. This little gathering here in some obscure place, from here, a mighty missionary